Yeah. Welcome everyone to our panel. It's an honor and great pleasure to introduce our session, which is called Strategies to Survive, Resist, and Win the War. Comparative historical perspectives from veterans and youth in Timor Leste, East Timor, Vietnam, and the Philippines. We have 4 speakers from 3 different institutions in East Timor. The first speaker is Professor Therese Nguyen, who is a lecturer in the Department of Community Development in UNTL. And she's also the coordinator of the master's program, the master's course in community development. The second speaker is Dr. Azerino Vieira, who's a lecturer in Universidade da Paz, in Paz. And it's an honor and pleasure to introduce UNPAS because it's a university that was founded by a former combatant, and it was specially founded for former guerrillas and war veterans. Our third speaker is Professor Jose Cornelio Guterres, who's the president of the National Institute for Science and Technology, and he's also one of the co-founders of UNPAS. And the final speaker is myself. I'm a lecturer in environmental studies and global south studies at University of Philippines and also Universidade da Paz in Timor Leste. So welcome. We're going to have 15 minutes each for the speakers to present their research, and then we'll open it up for discussions. Thank you. Professor Tam, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I will share my screen first. Hello? Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. This is the research was done in a very short time. I supposed to do a cross comparative perspective with the experience in Vietnam, but I only can manage to cover the topic of food for survival in war and alternative food to survive in climate change experience in Timor Leste. Here is my structure of the presentation. Firstly, I want to briefly introduce about the historical context during the fighting, the struggle against the Indonesian occupation. The Indonesian army using the feminogenic policy in Timor Leste during the war. The second, I will talk briefly about the strategy to survive and the risk of food searching the experience from the guerrilla fighters. The third one, we capture some basic seeking method and reservation food employed by the resistance fighters or guerrilla fighters. Next, I will examine the lesson learned from the past experience for future food security, particularly in the face of threats posed by climate change. And lastly, I want to brainstorming about understand the survival techniques and what is the value lesson we can learn to address the future challenges related to food insecurity in Timor Leste. I think the historical context of Timor Leste before the occupation of Indonesian, Timor Leste was colonized by Portugal almost 500 years. And in 1977, 1975, Indonesian start occupy the eastern part of Timor Island, and from the 1975 to the end of 1976, the Fretilin is the major grassroots movement. We can call it as a nationalist movement to against the occupation, mobilize the community, and they have the 3 pilot center. One, I think I remember, one in Bauca, one in Likisa, and the other one I forgot. But in this pilot center, they mobilize the people, the civilian, and also the fighters to cultivating food, so they don't have problem with hungry. But since 1977, Indonesia start to deploy additional troops, and they encircle the island very strictly. They bombard the pilot center of the Fretilin. That's why they have to relocate their camps, and the population they have to relocate many times. So that's why they have no food security anymore. And as a consequence, the agriculture activities was diminished, and leading to scarcity of food, and they experience a situation of famine and live in despair. And according to the report of CAVR, is Commission for Reception, Truth and Reconciliation, it's reported that potential upper bound of 183,000 fatalities, and these casualties were attributable to various factors, including famine-induced ailments, heightened susceptibility to illness due to malnutrition, psychological distress, physical exhaustion, and constrained availability of medical assistance. So that's to face that situation. At that time, the strategy to survive is they have 2 strategies. First, the Fretilin decide to let the population go down from the mountains, because they decide that people must surrender because the war is still a long way to go. And another statement from the CAVR report, they said that now you can leave. The leader of Fretilin talked to their people that now you can leave. You don't have to stay here. You will die because there is no more food and medicine. We are telling all of you that you can surrender to Indonesia, but you must never forget one thing. Your hands may work for Indonesia, but you must remember us always. And you can go there, but you must find a way to look for us, continue contact us, and you must not be scared. So the civilians or the population, they start to leave the mountains. Only the resistant fighters still live in the forest, and the fighter will face a lot of difficulties to looking for food resources. So food foraging they do in the forest that I interview with the veterans. They share, this is the food resource they use as, in Tetun we call kulo, or English breadfruit. They also consume aca, or this a kind of sago from cabbage palm, kombili, yang, kwan moro, white virus yang. And this is some of the picture of kombili that the population still consume during the dry season. They usually burn it. And another strategies is to consume the leaves and consume the fruits that they notice if the ghosts and the birds can consume, say, so they think that human can consume. That's the local knowledge. They base on the local knowledge to consume. There are many type of wild tupers in the forest, such as maek. It's a white elephant food yarn. It's very bitter. No, it's very itchy. But they very creative. Later, I will present the method of processing the wild food. And they also consume kumbili, picking and gathering kulu, and especially the bennywort. It's interesting that the local knowledge, they don't know bennywort is the most consumable in Southeast Asian countries, especially to my knowledge in my own countries. Now they make bennywort become a powder and sell it in the supermarket. But here, it just in Timor Leste, just grow widely, and people don't have much knowledge about this. But during the harsh time in Matebiang mountain, the population consume it to overcome their hunger and thirst. And another wild resource like wild ginger flower, young palm leaves. Young palm leaves, the palm tree is in the mid. The picture I locate in the middle. They can boil the young one to eat, and also they consume the black palm sago from the in Tetun we call akatu metam. And also they also consume the young leaves from the benjamin tree. And also they notice any leaves the goat can eat, so they can consume. And also the fruits from the pimi date palm. And another one in the picture at the right side of is Entada drehisis. They can consume that seed as well. Food preservation strategies, usually the resistant fighter use is boiling, and mostly the safe method they use is drying, depend on type of food. For them, drying is safe because they don't produce the smoke, so the enemy cannot detect where they cook. They also use grilling. And another method is to bury the food, typically meat or fish and vegetable, in the medium pit, cover with soil and dry leaves and firewood, and burn it until the food got done. So another methods they use for transport and processing, they keep food in every fighter backpacks. It means that when they process the food, they divide the food into equally to their member, and everyone should keep at their backpack. I think another I miss out one important food is a coconut, because the coconut the gorilla can dry and make it like the string and hang over their neck. So when they confront with the enemy and no time for looking another food, so they just eat the dry coconut. And everyone they keep in their backpack with the sharp katana, so they can use for clear the path, and also searching for food. Sometimes in difficult time they use bamboo to start the fire. The veterans share with us the crisp of looking for food and processing the food. The resistance fighter ensure a prolonged struggle for independence, often rely on limited resource of food to sustain themselves during their time in the forest. And sometimes people got killed when they were exposed to cook the food or seeking for food. There's a very sad story from one veteran share that he witnessed his compras was killed during the Indonesian army detect the smoke from their cooking. So they just cut the throat of just cut the head of their compras. And the story from also one fighter got killed because just he climbed up to the trees to catch the records, and the army discover him and shoot him. I think there's more story about this, but I listened to some story from very limited veterans that I interviewed. So all of these food resources is limited. It's not only during the war we are facing the global disaster is the climate change. And Timor now experience this year we are experiencing the impacts of El Nino. So there are a lot report from World Food organization and UN agency and the other international NGO. They start to fund the government to reserve food for the population, because there are some there will be a scarcity, or we face the food insecurity. Globally, the rice price is increasing because of climate change and also because of war. Some country before rely on the I forgot another food staple the European consume. They use for flour for to make bread. Because of the war with the Ukraine, the flour price also increased. So they turn to rice to replace the flour. So imported food accounts for a 60% of Timor Leste food consumption. It's interesting that the agriculture in Timor Leste also cannot sustain the domestic consumption in Timor Leste. So and another side, they have very rich traditional food sources, and it was abundant, and very few people consume it. Not so many people consume the food that I mentioned in the slide above. So as we know, the economic needs and free market without the government policy can shift the food consumption pattern and make population depends more on the imported food. This means that population started to abandon and ignore their local resource. The sense of food sovereignty was lost at the moment. So to end my presentation, I will have some brainstorming question about the lesson learned from the past experiences and also what we can do for the future food security. So what lesson we can glean from the guerrilla fighters enduring um, deprivation and harsh condition? What would be the alternative food in threatening climate change for Timor Leste when the habit of consuming rice and dependence on imported rice impose dependence in both rural and urban areas in Timor Leste? I think that more research will needed on food stuff that can be adapted to climate change. For example, like breadfruits is a alternative food to climate change in Pacific Island right now. And also we need to discover the strategy to expanding the cultivation of climate resistant food crops and plants. And think more research on the why food sources in Timor Leste that not yet discovered yet. Like example, I talk about pennyworth leaves. It's very rich and it's grow widely like grass in on the mountains, but very few people consume it. I think that's all for my presentation for now. Thank you for the chair of the panel for letting give me time for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom, for such an insightful, really inspiring presentation. I think Azerino is having problems with his internet. So maybe Professor Jose Cornelio can go next instead. Is that all right? Professor Jose Cornelio, are you ready to go next?
With the internet, so I think let me open the file.
Okay. Yeah, Azerino is having problems with his internet. He was using WhatsApp and saying that he couldn't connect. So
Um, can you see the slide?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Should I start now?
Yes, yes, please.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the time, Dr. Siapno, as a moderator for this session. My name is Cornelio Guterres, one of the lecturers from Faculty of Social Science of Humanity, Universidade da Paz, Timor Leste. I think from this university, three of us, Dr. Zoe, Mr. Azerino, and I myself were selected to be part of this very high-level presentation. I also want to express my deepest gratitude to the organizing committee that accept our paper to be part of this presentation. The title of my presentation today is Commander David Daitula, a heroic journey for Timor-Leste independence a lesson for the young generation. I think it is important for Timorese to write their own history of the struggle for the independence of Timor Leste. And it is also it is also important for Timorese to document the heroes who sacrificed themselves, who died for the country liberation. And specifically why I choose this topic, because David Daitula, Daitula is a revolutionary name for Alex Daitula. Every hero, every commander in Timor-Leste, they always have their own revolutionary name. That's like, for example, Sanana, Tarumatan Ruak, Lerana Timor, Daitula, La Sama, Samalarua, and others that as their revolutionary name to against the enemy, the invaders. And why I choose David Daitula, because despite his involvement in struggle as a military commander, he also prepared education for Timorese intellectual for the future development. He also somehow developed some cultural identity. Like, for example, at the time he started to develop Tetum, our national language at the time, that his dream that Tetum one day become the national language of Timor-Leste. He also created a center for environmental conservation, and also instilling other important values that are relevant for youth today. And I think I will. There are four main objectives of this presentation that I would like to bring you to understand the content of my presentation. First, to highlight the struggling for independence of Timor-Leste from 1975 to 1999. Second, to elaborate the important role of Commander David Daitula in the struggle to achieve the independence of Timor-Leste from 1975 to 1976, the time he died. To present the challenges, sacrifice, and leadership qualities demonstrated by David Daitula during his historical period. To present some meaningful lessons from his experiences for the benefit and inspiration of the young generation. Has I think Dr. Tam also has stated out on her presentation that Timor-Leste was colonized by Portuguese regime. It's about almost about half century, yeah, and it's about 450 years under the colonization of Portuguese. In 1975, the Portuguese regime withdrew from Timor-Leste due to the process of colonization in 1974. That today we call it a flower revolution in Portugal. There was a sort of movement in Portugal that to overthrow the dictatorship there. So the democracy started emerging in Portugal, and then the Portuguese regime started giving green light to the all colonies in Africa, Southeast Asia, including Timor-Leste, to prepare themselves for independence. So after the Portugal withdrawal in 1975, Indonesia immediately invaded territory in the same year. Of course, the invasion were supported by some giant countries, big countries, especially US, Australia, and other European countries, because they think that at the time Timor-Leste were under influence by the communist ideology at the time. So these big countries behind or back Indonesia military to invade Timor Leste. Of course, the Timor Leste was during the occupation. There was also resistance because we were under the brutal oppression and also some form of human rights abuses by the Indonesian military. So there also a group of movement that called is Fretilin and also other pro-independence movement led by resistance, led the resistance against the Indonesian forces. The resistance was marked by the guerrilla because our resistance, we navigate through three fronts at a time. By the guerrilla warfare, that those army forces that they resist in the forest, in the jungle, and we also expand the movement, we call it a clandestine movement in urban area, and also including some territory of Indonesia, and also diplomacy movement mostly in abroad that are led by Dr. Zera Muchorta. One of the form of the resistance that we call is Santa Cruz Massacre. There's a youth movement. They organized demonstration against the Indonesian military at the time, and then the Indonesian military also opened fire against this demonstration, and they were killed. It was around 200 youth students were killed at the time. 200,000, sorry, were killed by the Indonesian military in 1991. And this massacre draw the international attention and also increase awareness of the Timorese struggle for independence. And the number of international community also gradually increased. Because initially they are reluctant to support, but after that they witness the human rights abuses, torture, killing against the pro-independence group. So the international solidarity also start to increase, and they also start oppress to the military of Indonesia at the time. And then finally in 1999, Indonesia agreed to a UN-sponsored referendum in that year. In the referendum, of course, pro-independence movement decisively won the vote over the pro-Indonesian faction. And soon after, post-referendum, violence and also some reconstruction that we started at that time. Some violence, the form of violence, for example, pro-Indonesian militias was backed by the Indonesian military, carry out some campaign of violence and destructions. Many Timorese were displaced, and widespread reports of human rights abuses at the time. And after that, Timor Leste also under 2 years under the government of UN for 2 years, from 1999 to 2002. That's in 2002, Timor Leste started to proclaim itself as an independent nations, and we start to develop our national development from scratch. That's we emphasize highlighting on 4 very important pillars: that the infrastructure, building administrations, social and economic development as well. And the next, I would like to bring your attention to the role of David Daitula in the struggle for independence. I think as I highlight before that our struggle navigate to three fronts. That's army forces, army resistance, clandestine, and diplomatic. And in army resistance, for example, there's the leaders that command the struggle was Sanana Guzmão as a commander-in-chief, Taur Matarruac as a chief of staff, Lera Anand Timor as first vice chief of staff, and David Daitula as second vice chief of staff. And what are the David Daitula role within the army forces in the struggle for independence? I think David Daitula is a very strategic person in a military tactic design. I interview one of enemy of Timor Leste time, Indonesian military, and they say that David Daitula is very good in terms of design the military strategy to against the Indonesian forces. So in this case, he, in his role as a commander at the time, was designed the military strategy to fight against Indonesian army forces, organize the fighting against Indonesian military forces, aimed to indicate to international community on the continued resistance of Timor Leste, and seizing guns, food, uniform, clothes from their enemy for continue their resistance. He also maintained contact with the international solidarity to get their support for the independence of the country. Aside from military fighting, he also cooperated with the youth to establish a school to develop cultural identity in the Timor Leste. As I told you, I highlight before that David Daitula's strategic meeting also have his movement that also went to develop the diplomatic relations with other journalists and also political activists from abroad. Like, for example, in 1994, Commander Daitula met with Yasuoka Shiro, a Japanese journalist, to establish satellites. The aim of this meeting was to establish satellite communication channels for resistance. He also want to promote Tetum language for cultural preservation. He also discussed about the financial aid for the essential supply for the movement. He was meeting with Australian journalist Tony Jeffrey in 1995 to document a peaceful demonstration at the Timor Leste University at the time, UNTIM. The demonstration was strategically timed with the international discussion in Geneva at the time. David Daitula also met with Max Stahl in order to promote the existence of volunteer to international community. Before the presence of Max Stahl in massacre 1991, 3 days before he met with David Daitula to talk about this issue. He also met with journalist Dom Roth to document some history of fighting for freedom. He also met with some political activists, René Thiel, HPP Mai, AST, who actively engage with political activists or leaders worldwide. They convey the information to political leaders of Timor-Leste diplomatic movement in abroad, like Mr. Zara Mazorta and Azri Pereira. Aside from his diplomatic meeting, he also organized some attack, some military attack against Indonesian military. That was an ambush attack at in Bokau in 1992. He also organized an attack in Asalaitula in 1996, in Kelikai after the general election of Indonesia. I think the main of this attack were to seize guns, bullets, and clothes, foods for their resistance, and also to show to international community that we are here, still resist. And I also want to share with you some challenges and sacrifices faced by David Daitula and his group. Despite promises, I think the beginning of 1975, there was a lot of promises from abroad, like for example from Vietnamese government, Russia, China. They went to assist some logistical assistance for Timor Leste war at the time. But finally, this promise never materialized. So Timor Leste has to struggle by their own, stand on their own force, and then they won this resistance. And some other challenges is that they face some geographical barriers in their ability to hide during enemy attack, leaving them unable to cook, eat, and drink for 3 and sometimes up to half months. Like for example, one guy, he told me a story that one day they fighting for a week, and they never cook and they never eat at the time. And they named this the place that they were fighting, they call it no cook and no eat, because they never cook and they never eat during a week. And when they got the injury, illness, they were treated solely by the traditional medicine due to lack of access to industrial medicine. And some military members, they have children in the jungle, in the forest, and they have to collaborate with the religious groups in the city to care the children. It's not easy. It's really very hard for both from the religious group side in the city, and also from the military member in the jungle. And last but not least, I would like to share with you also some lessons from David Daitula that can be generated to the young generations in nowadays. Commander Daitula leadership embodies determination, courage, resilience, self-discipline, loyalty, and obedience. Determinism, for example, David Daitula used to be firm with his goal. Always say life or death, but never surrender. We should struggle to achieve our independence. We never surrender to enemy. And also courage, he showed his ability to confront fear, pain, danger, uncertainty, or intimidation, whether physical or emotional. And also resilience, Daitula has the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness, the ability to bounce back from setback or adversity. And self-discipline, he also very good in self-discipline. He disciplined his member in the forest, in the jungle, but he also disciplined the youth, the movement in the city. That must be disciplined. And also loyalty. He used to be loyal to his commander in chief. This also, Sanan also recognized that. Tarumatan Ruak later also recognized that David Daitula is very loyal to the commanders. Obedience, his ability to be compliant with an order, request, law, submission to authority and the top commanders. I think this all these values most important is to be a part of youth nowadays, so they become a part of our life. I think that's all of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for such a powerful presentation, Professor Jose Cornelio. Now we're going to move on to Dr. Azerino Vieira. I'm just going to pause for a bit because we're having internet problems.
Azerino, putih mana join? Ni pause and stop sharing kan? Click and stop share. Okay. Ratu sorry nih. Kami kan dia kayaknya. Oh, ada dan ya. Satu nih malam ini. Oh nih, oh koko on the internet, ya on the laptop lah. Sama lah. Lagi untuk untuk area ini maka capture internet ya kalian. Sama bye họ họ hay tăng access internet họ sẽ là mai area này.
Is it recording again? Hi, we're having problems with Azerino, Dr. Azerino Vieira's PowerPoint and the internet connection, so I'm going to go first. Thank you so much to my co-panelists, Professor Nguyen from UNTL, Professor Jose Cornelio Guterres from UNPAS and also INCT, and Professor Azerino Vieira from UNPAS. It's an honor and pleasure to be part of this panel with you, and thank you so much to Professor Nguyen for organizing this and thinking of having this panel. And we're very grateful to AAS for choosing our panel. I speak to you on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. I speak to you also as a Filipina from Pangasinan, whose mother country fought a colonial resistance movement against Spain and the United States. Many of our resistance leaders, like Jose Rizal, were labeled and categorized as quote-unquote terrorists. I also speak to you as a citizen of East Timor, Timor Leste, a country that was divided by the European colonialists. Timor Island was split into two. The Dutch took West Timor and the Portuguese took East Timor. But it took many years of fighting between the Dutch and Portuguese before they could officially get their land-grabbing portions. My paper is about environmental history and what we have lost in terms of our forest. Most of the human rights violations that have been written about because of settler colonialism, forcible displacements are on humans. But increasingly now, there's a lot of work that is written about the environmental history of multi-species justice. There's a book called The Camphor and the Elephant by Zakaria, for example, which talks about Sumatra. And I'm also starting research on crocodiles in Timor. So what if anthropocentric history dominated by humans is limiting our capacity to better understand our planet? What if the crocodile really is our ancestor instead of a threat or a terrorist to humans? If crocodiles and elephants and sandalwood and camphor trees could speak and could tell their history, what would they say? How do we decolonize anthropocentric history? How do we practice and exercise new methods of learner-centered pedagogies? This is very challenging even for now for our students here, because some students are really comfortable and happy with learner-centered methods, but other students really want you to give them orders in terms of what are the questions and what are the prompts. So my research was looking at a comparative study of land grabbing in the Philippines. I'm starting with the Philippines and Indonesia and East Timor. I'll see if I can try to show my my slides. Hold on.
And now we are waiting for Azerino.
You know.
Okay, Azerino, go ahead and present your paper. We're recording now.
Okay, thank you. Apology for very bad internet connection.
Oh no, it's
and,
okay.
I'm trying to send you the link.
It's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Straight into my presentation.
Yes.
It's about youth bulls and the conflict and peace building in East Timor. The research is focused on how youth will contribute in the post-conflict East Timor and what has been happening in East Timor and what is going to be done due to the increasing number of young population. There is a link between unemployment and youth, between politics and youth. But my argument is built on how youth bulls affect either conflict and development in a post-conflict country. Now, we all know that the theory of youth bulls was coined by a political scientist, Anthony Goldstone, which has been developed over the years and made up many academics like Hendrick Urdal, Robert D. Kaplan, Gary Filler. They have been all interested in looking at how youth bulls affect political stability and economic development within the country. Now, what they have been argued is like developing countries undergoing a demographic transition or moving from high to low fertility or mortality rates are especially vulnerable to civil conflict. Now, what that's to do with East Timor in relation to post-conflict? Now, the question of youth bulge in relation to East Timor is that in early 90s, with the emerging youth and the student movement for independence, we can see there is a variety of resources, academic resource, which present or which mostly have underlined the issue of young people in the 90s, because there is an increasing number of young people, well-educated young people, like in the generation of Fernando Lasama, Asanami. They were all educated in Indonesia. But what happened in East Timor at that time was there is a lack of opportunity for jobs and lack of career. That's adding to a political conflict which is happening in East Timor. The demand for political change and social movement was increasing in that time. Now, after East Timor gained independence in early 2000, what happened is, because of this increasing youth population, in early 2004 and 2006, there were a conflict, political conflict of youth demanding opportunities, job opportunities, and the lack of job opportunities, and which adding with a conflict of political issues in 2006, which happened to organize around that youth population, because it was easy for political parties or politicians to mobilize people around issues that actually imagine. And how and what happened after that conflict in 2004 and 2006? There is a change in which conflict is began to drop from 2007, 2010, 11. Now, what effect that changes in conflict to drop is because of what I would call it the role of Portugal in conflict prevention and peace building in East Timor. Now, what I'm saying is that when the Portuguese give opportunity to the Timorese, providing citizenship for East Timorese, many young people use that as an opportunity for them to get that, to grasp that opportunity to change their life in terms of, gaining jobs, opportunity in Europe, because this Portuguese citizenship allow many young Timorese people to go abroad in Europe, like in UK, in Northern Ireland. They gain jobs and opportunity which was unavailable in East Timor, which were not present in East Timor. Now, that's one thing. The government of Timorese, East Timor government did is a labor policy on youths. And what they did was there is a working relation. I wouldn't call it a cooperation work because it's mostly invest by the Australian and the Korean government. Now, what the Timorese government called as a cooperation is they provide, for example, like Australian government, they provide a seasonal worker program for East Timorese and the Pacific labor schemes, which allow many young Timorese who are not able to gain a Portuguese citizenship. They have another alternative to gaining a work opportunity in Australia. The only requirement for this scheme, seasonal worker programs or Pacific labor scheme, is they have to train, they have to have some basic English knowledge and understanding of the Australian society, basically, working relations, work ethics in Australia, same as what happened in Korea. So this opportunity allow a lot of young people, even the married couple, they would take this opportunity and move abroad, either to Europe or Australia, to work, earn money, and send money back home to help develop their change their household income or improve their household income. Some have the opportunity to reinvest their money in small businesses, retail businesses. And also those who went to Korea, they have this opportunity to send money back home, similar to that of Australia and Portugal. Now, the differences between those working relations between the Timorese government and Portugal, Australia, or Korea is that for some reason, Timorese government tend to rely mostly on foreign intervention in developing and prevention of peace and conflict in East Timor. Now, what the Portuguese did was, open widely their, citizenship opportunity for many Timorese, and all these young Timorese are, grab the opportunity and trying to move out from this country because for them it is an alternative, or it's a big chance of changing their life opportunity, which they don't have in East Timor, because those who went to abroad, they send money back home, reinvesting. That's attract young people who are currently in East Timor and become interested. For them, it's an interesting opportunity because they have seen some improvement of those who went before. So this attract a lot of young people. What happened once this migrant worker, I would say, a lot of migrant workers went abroad. Now, because there is a lack of demand, and most of the young people currently in here, either at university students or unemployed young people, they don't really, I wouldn't say care, but they don't really, they kind of lose hope in a political change within this country, because they don't care about whether the policy or politics is how it goes, who is going to design that policy or whatever it is. They don't care. and they have very, I think they lack the interest of demanding change and demanding jobs, which is a big issue for East Timor. Once this working age population, they are all moving abroad. I wouldn't say it's not good for East Timor, but in terms of a short-term development, because the money they earn abroad and they send back to East Timor is making a huge, big changes within the household, within the community, and within the state. But the long term which is raised the question of how long will the Timorese government rely on this Western or foreign aid for development, peace building, and conflict prevention, which I am continuing to look at it. But for the meantime, I think there is a lot of a number of huge wave of young people keep moving abroad, and those who are here or at the university, the students, they are thinking of when they get their degree, if they don't get the job in East Timor, all they hope for is either go to Australia or to Korea or to Europe. Now the difference between go to Europe and Australia and Korea is that it requires certain very different procedure. For example, if they want to go to Portugal, they have to get this citizenship through various applications, and they have to apply for it, and it's a very complicated procedure. And but if they want to go to Australia, all they have to do is gain some English course, take some English course, develop their skills through CEFOPE, is the government institutions for labor opportunity, I think. And then they have to train, and a lot of applications they have to fill in order to get the opportunity. Same as those who went to Korea, they have to have a basic knowledge of knowledge of Korean language, and they have to have a very good health certificate from Ministry Hospital. So this is a very very big issue, I think, for East Timorese government, but also for the Australian, the Korean, and the Portuguese to think how long will this program continue, and what happen if as Australian government suddenly stopped this program, or Korean, because with the changing global economy and security, I think it is important for East Timorese government to carefully assess this program, how long they will going to maintain this program, and to what end will this program help development in East Timor. So maybe you already know that once a lot of young people working in this population are moving abroad, there is a less likely demand for change, political change, or political change in East Timor. And I think this is what
Hello.
Portuguese. Yes, and they got to talk to some international aid workers, and they
Thank you so much, Dr. Vieira, for your excellent research on how we continue to face so many challenges and the struggle continues in terms of recovering after war, after colonial occupation. Thank you so much to all of you for listening and for my co-panelists. And we sincerely appreciate you being with us today. And thank you, and we apologize for all of the technological issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mandalay.
Okay, bye. This is
Wait.
gonna.
Bye.
Thank you
Did
so
take
much.
a picture yet? Wait, Mana, I take the picture first. I don't know where my phone.